Yeah, good afternoon to you all. Respected Chair, Dr. John Martin, sir, co-chair, and IVA office bearers and friends. In fact, I would first at the outset, I will congratulate the organizers, IVA unit, for having taken up this particular program on zoonosis T. Like, that was a very good initiative. In the part, we were conducting a series of webinars based on currently contemporary topics like many diseases, meat-borne zoonosis, and definitely I think I'm very privileged to be a part of it. And basically, I'll just start off from what Dr. Habib, my previous speaker, has left, because many times we always think that animals are a real cause for all these diseases, because they harbor a lot of pathogens which are found to be causing disease in human beings. So it's really a conundrum of many things happening in all zoonotic diseases. We know that there are a lot of zoonotic diseases, and which we know and which we are yet to know. So basically, 2018 we had a zoonosis of Nipah virus infection coming in the northern part of Kerala. But before that, I just recall my days, when I started my career in 1997, when I joined the department. When the zoonosis day was celebrated, there was only one disease to be thought about. That is just rabies. So all the time, whenever you're talking about zoonosis, you think about the most dreaded disease, that is rabies. So there was no other thing or no other disease to be really scared of, because rabies was such a disease. But later on, we didn't have a paucity of diseases, because every year you have many diseases coming up, emerging and re-emergence of diseases. And all these things are happening, and we are alive, seeing all this with little to work on. But anyway, we are doing something on it. So, this is please don't take this title straight as Nipah is a new infectious pathogen in animal husbandry. It's not an acronym expanded to its scientific wording or something like that sort. But we just thought, 2018, we suddenly saw a new disease coming up. So we thought probably this can be a new infectious pathogen coming into the sector. Later on, very soon we realized that, every year we got a new Nipah coming in. So it's again new pathogens adding on to our kitty. There are a lot of pathogens coming in. And zoonosis, as you all know, out of 10 diseases, we take 6 diseases will be zoonotic. And emerging diseases, EIDs are emerging infectious diseases also. Almost all the diseases are almost zoonotic. So you have an endemic zoonosis, you have an epidemic zoonosis, and emerging and re-emerging zoonosis. Endemic zoonosis is nothing but those diseases which are prevalent in your place, wherein you have certain diseases like anthrax, tuberculosis, brucellosis. These all kind of come under your endemic zoonosis. And emerging and re-emerging, you have avian influenzas coming up. So these are, and the baffling picture, what is being recorded is, you have 2 million people dying out of zoonosis every year. Because that is something that's unimaginable, and that has to be stopped. No, in spite of all our efforts, these things are happening, because advancement in technology, advancement in diagnosis, sophistication in your infrastructure, everything has come up, but still the plight of the people dying due to diseases, that is not diseases, is still 2 million. So probably this is a rare footage of what, this is not a 2020 COVID carcass or a corpse being carried to the burial ground. It is a 2018 picture in which the Nipah had caused a lot of human deaths. And this again, Nipah was almost the same thing, the PPEs, the joining of PPEs, all these things were in the same tune. Probably it was more risky, because the case fatality rate was almost 88% in Calicut Nipah. Whereas in COVID, we have only less than 2% of case fatality. So again, these things are there. These were there much before too. So bat-borne diseases, I just love the species of animal that is the bats. Bats are the most abundant species in the world next to rodents. When you take the numbers of mammals in the world, the most abundant would be rodentia, and they are in the rodent group, and then would be bats. You have different species in different order. You have this varied group of bats, and so diverse and geographically disposed that in almost every nook and corner of the world you will find bats. The presence of bat is so, whenever there's a darkness or night coming in, we always expect bats to be around. So that is what, bats have come to us as a part of our, everyday nightlife. So around 66 viruses have been isolated from bats. That doesn't mean that all these viruses are pathogenic to bats or that they are the real cause of the disease. But unfortunately, they happen to be as reservoirs because they don't have any other problem. They just become asymptomatic. They just carry on harbor the virus, and at times they will disseminate to the environment, causing a bit of a problem like in a human illness or animal illness. So basically, why I always thought of why these things are happening. Is it due to the ecological alterations? Of course, we know that the habitat is getting lost. That is why you have stray animals, wild animals coming into the human habitat, causing a lot of killing people. And the same thing is happening in bats too. You have a lot of you had a lot of roosting sites before, and now you are just cutting out the trees for widening your roots or for buildings or constructions or things. And probably the whole habitat loss is caused the stress upon these particular species of animal, which has really caused a problem in these animals disposing the infection or the so-called reservoirs getting spilling out the organisms to the outside. So the whole switching phenomenon, we don't know, because the virus also is again another organism or a living thing, wherein the virus takes all its mechanisms to survive the ops. So if you previously when we were studying, we always thought certain species specific diseases are there because that will not jump above the host range. But later on we realized that viruses have got a tremendous ability to switch from host to host because they have to have a living. Because once it gets defeated in one host, they try to search another host wherein you can get a good platform for survival or thrive. So that sort of mechanism is still happening. And I'm really, I've got another opinion, not because the diseases have emerged newly, but your diagnostic capabilities also have come up. You have a lot of infrastructure being built up in your government laboratories, universities. Veterinary universities doing a lot of work on research, doing a lot of research on these things. And of course, Department of Animal Husbandry also, in collaboration with national centers of importance, we also do a lot of work. So such sort of things are happening. So your diagnostic competence has definitely improved. And that is probably one of the reasons why you detect a lot of pathogens, not because it was not there before, but it was detected now because your diagnostic competence or your expertise have come up. So normally the pathogens that harbor in bats, these are the pathogens that harbor means those pathogens which have been recovered from bats. So rhabdovirus, the famous rhabdovirus family includes the rabies virus and the related Lissa virus group, which cause all those CNS signs in animals and human beings. So rhabdovirus is the major group of the most deadly viruses which a bat can harbor. But orthomyxoviruses, that orthomyxo is the influenza group of viruses. Normally, bats are not they're fortunate not to be accused as a host for avian influenza, because we have other things to be thought of, like birds are there, and other species like pigs can be implemented as a host for avian influenza. But bats are not considered as a definitive host of reservoir, but still they have been recoveries of the virus from bats. And paramyxovirus, we all know that all these notorious agents, what happens in animals, are all because of paramyxoviruses. For example, so if you take it in poultry with Veronican disease, you take it in dogs with meningitis. In animals, it would be again Nipah virus. The virus we are talking about today in my lecture would be Nipah virus. And Hendra virus also, again the paramyxo. So paramyxoviruses are very lethal, or probably the deadly ones, what you can see the virus family, among the virus families, to be causing very varied sort of illnesses in animals. And flavivirus group is mainly a human pathogen, like your GE, your Japanese encephalitis, your chikungunya, and all these flavivirus group of viral hemorrhagic fevers, what we call it in general. So those form under these flavivirus groups. Coronaviruses also, we have the SARS-CoV, this MERS-CoV, and also the latest COVID-19. Toga viruses, and also Bunia viruses, like the Radiology and the Premier CCHF viruses. Herpes virus also have been recovered from that. So the geography, now let me come to the disease proper. Nipah is nothing but the first detection was in Malaysia in the year 1998. To be very frank, I'll tell you, that time I was the department, but we never had any inkling of what is happening in Malaysia because nobody ever told about it. Nobody ever discussed about Nipah during that time, if my memory is right. Probably teachers in universities might be aware of such things at that time. But anyway, in the department for that matter, I was just at that time also was put up in the same institute. At that time, it was CDIU, it was not CIAD. Again, we were also doing this exploratory work and disease investigation field work, but nobody made us aware that there was a problem there, like Nipah and viruses come up in Malaysia for causing sort of a lot of illnesses, and that's a zoonotic disease too. And later on, it jumped from Malaysia to Singapore. So then again, it came to India in the year 2001, and again there were in the year Bangladesh in the year 2001. And every year from 2001 to 2010, there have been recurrence of the disease almost every year, a few cases, but it doesn't go out of endemic, go out of low proportions. It just has a lag phase. It just affects some animals that it breeds off, and again it comes again, re-emerges. And for the 10 years in Bangladesh, it was so. And India also, in West Bengal, we had a problem in 2001, and same again West Bengal 2007 it happened. And 2018, alas, it happened in Kerala. I don't know why, because West Bengal, virus cannot jump from back. Bats are there in Orissa too. Orissa was very near to West Bengal. It didn't happen there, but we don't know what was the real cause of this happening in Kerala. Anyway, the name Nipah, you should be knowing that it is again from the same place in Malaysia, where it's called as a Nipah. Probably if you ask two names from Malaysia which you can name, probably one would be the capital Kuala Lumpur and the other would be Nipah. Just because the disease gave the city the name, or the village or the place the name. So that was really a big industry, a lot of big industries, and there was a booming business of piggery. And suddenly some pig farmers fell ill due to a virus which caused encephalitic problems, the CNS disturbances, and suddenly it was diagnosed as Nipah. And that was considered as a zoonotic event too. And moreover, the interhuman transmission rates were also too much. So etiology is an RNA paramixed variety, and it belongs to the genus Henipa. Previously, Hendra and Nipah were considered together in the paramixed virus genus in the family. So it was together called as Henipa or the Hendra Nipah virus, and now it's been considered as recognized as two different viruses. Hendra, again, Hendra, the host are slightly different. That birds and horses would be the best host for Hendra, whereas Nipah would be pigs and human pigs, and also bats. Yeah. And all the time we think about bats. Bats are the culprits. We always accuse bats. Bats are causing the problem. But what good things bats are doing? Nobody just don't care about that, because nobody has ever built a forest for that matter. It all happens. And as a natural mechanism of these bats dispersing the seeds, pollinating the flowers, and of course the insect control also bats are taking care of. Suppose if there were no bats in your vicinity, you would be buying almost 2 or 3 liquidators of mosquito bats, or a couple of mosquito bats you'll be spending every day to hit your mosquitoes and get yourself rid of the mosquitoes. So insect control is a major thing what bats are doing. So it often around 1,000 mosquitoes, a single bumblebee bat, the smallest bat, can consume around 1,000 mosquitoes in an hour. So that means that sort of big level of work these bats are doing. And the gunos, or the droppings or the excreta from the bats, is considered to be a very good manure for your plants too. And having said all this, you always consider this particular species of mammal, or the flying mammal. It's not a winged mammal. It's a flying mammal just because the pterygium, it's a winged limb. In fact, it's not wings. So this particular species of mammal which flies, it's called as a keystone species. Means that is one of the species of the animal which really has got a bearing on the ecosystem, which has got a detrimental effect. The population decline is surely going to have an effect on the ecosystem. But I'll tell you the last thing, the vermin is one of the categories in the schedule of the Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Vermin is supposed to be the least considered category, wherein you can kill or hunt or whatever you can do with that. Nobody's going to ask you, the forest department is not going to ask you why you've done this. Because you have a lot to there, because a lot of bats are there in the world, it's too populous. Moreover, it's not be considered as a scheduled category animal or a bird. So in that case, it's considered as a vermin, but still all the time we should be thinking of the keystone species, which should not be spared. Because there were thoughts from in the Malaysian outbreak, it was only pigs that were involved. But later on in Bangladesh, there were a few bats, because people started having the disease after consumption of these sap of these date palms. So that was contaminated with bat urine and all. So people thought of even depopulating bats. So that would have been a very foolish idea, but administrators or some enthusiasts, nature lovers, They resisted to that particular move, that initiative, and that was shelved. So in fact, we should be really concerned about that. Yeah, and this was something, this toddy, the palm toddy, it's being consumed by bats. They like fruits too, and the people also like these, who have liking for these fruits, much more than you have a liking for toddy too. And this is the species or the this range or the whole range of these pteropus species. What we're talking about, the bats, that is the fruit frogs, these fruit bats or the flying foxes or the pteropus species. So these outbreaks have all occurred in those places where these pteropus species were so popular. So coming to the bats, in fact, I'm not going to take something on what class on bats, but at least you should be knowing what all bats are really involved in this particular context of Nipah. And fruit bats are supposed to be the most important or the most accused among the bats to cause disease like Nipah and almost all other diseases. Fruit bats is nothing but these are megacharacterans, which are all big bats, what you can see in these normal in big trees which hang upside down. And those roosting sites are very common. Almost every state or every place should be having a roost like this. So these are all big bats or the mega bats, what we call the fruit bats. As you can see, the eyes and the ears and the nose. Then these fruit bats, I'm just taking a minute out of my presentation to just give you some information about the bats. Because this is very important to identify the bats, because some species of bats only carry the viruses all the time. So these mega bats or these fruit bats or the flying foxes are mammals which just move not on echolocation, but they have a very good sense of vision and also an olfactory ability. So these mammals or these mega bats or the fruit bats just move about with their vision and not on echolocation. But whereas your insect bat, what you see down, insect bats are really these big-eared bats. That means ears becoming big means they give out some signals, and to receive the signals they need a big pinnae, for which they have to funnel it toward to the interior of the ear, and finally get good signals from that. So echolocation is only for insect bats. And the right side you see what is there? That is the vampire bats, the smallest species, which is not there nowadays. These are supposed to be the most scary type of bats, what we call the vampire bats. But vampire bats doesn't attack humans, doesn't kill humans. It just predates on the animal's back. It just gives a cut on the back and just sucks blood. That's the only thing. But it's still it's considered as a horror feature in the Dracula movies too. So, and basically these are the problems. What's happening? You just disturb bats. Bats getting disturbed probably will have a stress on them, and that is going to replace all those pathogens which I was telling before. As you can see in the left side, a host of bats. On the left side, probably this picture might be familiar to those people who are there in Cochin. Cochin, there is one natural forest in the midst of the city, what we call as the Mangalavanam. Mangalavanam is a big area where there's a natural forest which came all by its own. But people were very good in protecting that particular environment. But anyway, you have the roosting sites where we had used to get tens and thousands of bats at that time in one colony or big colonies like that. But here in this particular roost, you can just count the number of bats which is hanging there, like around 20 to 30. And the right side, what you see is the biggest colony of bats or the biggest aggregation of mammals in the world. Like that is the Bracken Cave in Texas, where you find almost, it's unbelievable, and almost 20 to 40 million bats in this particular cave, which is supposed to eat almost 100 tons of insects every year. So just giving you an example of how bats live and what their ecology is. Okay, I'm not going too much into that because that things get a bit more batty there. So hosts, the main host would be humans. The human, the main host, and primarily it's a disease of humans. It's from bats. Can I continue? Yeah.
Please continue first.
Hello. Yeah. Can I continue?
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, please. Okay. Humans are supposed to be the primary host, but pigs also have a very big role in the transmission, epidemiology, and also act as an amplifying host. See, amplifying hosts, the pigs are always a good species where to work on all viruses. You have to be in pigs because they can reabsorb, they can be a mixing vessel, because in foot and mouth disease it can be an amplifier. In bird flu or avian influenza it can be a mixing vessel. And in this case also, this has got a big role because it amplifies the virus. Once it gets inside from the bats, probably it amplifies and just dissipates or disseminates the virus in a huge number to the outside environment. And cats, dogs, and horses, though we have collected samples in the last Nipah outbreak at Calicut, we were skeptical about the collection of samples, but still we thought, we'll just try our luck on these species too. But cat, dogs, and horses are not supposed to be the normal host or the natural host for the virus. And the vicious cycle of this particular thing, you all know that bats come and consume these fruits, which falls down, then gets consumed by pigs, and then will be eaten by either the pig will contaminate the human being, or the fallen fruits will contaminate the human being when he picks up and eats it. But I would just request in this particular point, if you have it fallen from the tree, it's better not to eat it. Please don't eat fallen fruits. Even if you don't get a bite mark or a lick, there is a chance that the excreta of the bat would have contaminated the surface of this particular fruit. So it's better not to eat fallen fruit. Pluck a fruit and eat. Probably it's tiresome and troubling for you to pluck a fruit and eat. Instead, if you just go for quick bucks like that, just go for things which have fallen down. It's better not to do, particularly in the context of Nipah. So you would love to do that, but I prefer you not to do that. So these are the things what happens. And again, it contaminates, comes and drinks the toddy, which is there in the palm tree. And the person who is collecting the toddy, probably he'll drink from top, or probably he'll bring it down and give it to somebody else to drink. So anyway, this is going to have a problem in transmission of the disease. So definitely that should also be controlled. So you can have proper protective covers like K or some sort of protective covering in the top of this palm pot, which you keep in the top. But again, the sap has to flow down to the pot. That is again an issue. But of course, that people will try to manage. Anyway, these are things. And again, Hendra is another disease where you can find a horse in between. That is only for Hendra. Hendra is a regular host for, horse is a regular host for Hendra. And the virus stability, as you can see, the stability of the virus, because in a huge, like in an acidic region, a basic range, as low as 4 and as high as 10, this virus can withstand. And temperature range is also, it's almost, you cannot tell it's a thermophilic organism, but still you can tell the range of the organism, the survival of the organism outside the body would be 22 to 30. So, almost the peak of the summer probably you won't have a problem, but all other modest temperatures you will have a problem because the virus can survive. But it's easily inactivated by good disinfectants like soap, alcohol, ether, and hypochlorite, bleach, and other things. And desiccation and drying definitely is going to kill all viruses. Favorable conditions, definitely this is going to survive for a long time. So pathogenesis, the incubation period, as you know, it's again 1 to 2 weeks, as short as a week, as it can go as far as 2 weeks. So case fatality is up to 50 to 90%, but in the Calicut outbreak 2018, it went as high as 88.08. So that is too high. So and again, there's another thinking that certain viruses, and this COVID outbreak, when the virus was phenotypically characterized, was looking as symmetrical or alike to the Bangladeshi strain, and that's again a paper which has come up and literature which has come up. So pigs, the mortality is low, but the morbidity is too high. And endothelial trophic means definitely you have a vascular endothelium. It's so you're liable to bleed all the time. So all these lesions may be, you find bleeding lesions inside the animal's body, and even in humans too, people tend to bleed. And humans, again, it affects mainly two particular systems. One is your respiratory system, and also your CNS or immunological system. So influenza, fever, headache, and dizziness would be your respiratory signs, whereas you have your respiratory, your cough and respiratory distress. And neurological signs would be, you have a delirium will be there, and you will have like some sort of a confusion and conversions will be there as well as clinical science. And Nipah virus infection gets to a human being. It can cause an acute encephalitic syndrome and also a pulmonary syndrome. The symptoms can subside or probably can relapse also, giving a late onset encephalitis and probably killing the person. So again, it goes to a massive cerebral bleed. It can cause immediate death. So the recovery is also there, but you end up with some neurological deficit if at all you would survive from the impact of the disease. In pigs, the characteristic would be the PRES, or the post-in respiratory and encephalitic syndrome, or the barking pig syndrome, wherein you find pigs having a chronic cough. Pig starts coughing, which is very unnatural and very not really. This particular symptom is you can differentially diagnose without going for any diagnostic methods. You can know it's a premonitory sign of your Nipah virus. So pigs, severe cough will be there, difficulty in breathing, trembling, twitching, all you see in the signs converging to spasms and all. And dogs and cats, you have a flu-like symptoms, and distemper-like symptoms like chorea, and you have a CNS type of problems. Other animals also, in other animals, the symptoms of Nipah is not well described. And the basic thing is that your collection of samples. Collection of samples is very important. In the case of human beings, it's not that wide. It's not a big problem because you can very well tell a woman, catch a little person, or put in and start collecting the samples. But in case of animals, only when the animal is dead, you can collect the samples. Otherwise, it's very hard to collect a sample from the bat, which you always accuse as the main culprit. So samples, some bats should be collected to finally end up in telling that bats are reservoirs. They have been harboring the organism, but you cannot do anything about it. But at least you have a surveillance in your pigs. Probably you need to do something. You have to have a serum, urine, and swab collected, or your feces collected. And yeah, this I think I'll just go after the next slide. And here you can go for the diagnostic test, your antigen detection test using a molecular method like PCR, or your ISC methods like can also work well for antigen detection. And your antibody detection using an IgM ELISA, IgG ELISA if you have one. But the problem with Nipah is, if you are really doing a postmortem, you have to have strict containment facilities. You have to have personal precautions and personal protective equipment done. Then only you attempt an autopsy, because you are liable to get a disease because of the risk for pathogen. Because once it gets into a human being, there is every chance of another human getting affected. So the interhuman transmission is so fast and so severe in humans. So as you can see in this outbreak in Calicut, out of the 18 people, 18 people who were severely badly affected, almost 17 people died. So that means that is a severity. So I think I'll go to the previous slide once more. Am I stuck? Yeah, this is one of the news that came in the Indian Express, because we have been trying, because I personally have a personal experience in ground zero working with Nipah. I'm not a scientist working with the virus, but I have been in the ground zero, in the ground reality, what was there as signs or symptoms and what all things people were doing, because it's not the animal husbandry department alone which what was there in this scene. We had different departments coming in, because it was an exotic disease suddenly coming to our place, because all those big shots were called from outside. All health professionals were there. Animal husbandry department also did a mite. Of course, that was really applauded by many of the government officials too. And finally, it's just see the headlines only: tracing source of Nipah virus hits a dead end. Bats now ruled out completely. Is it that bats are a real problem or bats are not a real problem? Again, yet it's a mystery still now. So prophylaxis, you don't have any prophylaxis because no vaccines are available for that matter. Antiviral chemotherapy or the vaccine is currently chemotherapy or vaccine is currently available. That's what is being told in nutrition. But ribavirin is supposed to control the mortality, and human monoclonal antibodies against Nipah-G glycoprotein has been tried effectively for containing the disease. And biosecurity measures, people just think of, if you have a piggery, probably you just plant some shade trees along. It was just to give a shade to the piggery, to the sty. Instead of putting an asbestos sheet, it's better if you can control the heat with your shade plants. It will be best. But in the context of Nipah, I would tell you not to do all this because But again, I am talking something about not. We should be really talking about afforestation and not deforestation. But it's better you can just cut off all those trees which is near to these because you can directly have a connection with the pigsty. It's better to have not to have fruit trees. You can have other trees like other shade plants like plants which can grow to the canopy. You can use it, but not anyway fruit trees. And avoid feeding half-eaten fruits because which they told you half-eaten fruits or even dropped fruits like those fruits that fall from the tree. Please don't attempt to eat that. And intensive disinfection, because we have been speaking about biosecurity, bio and all this. All the time we speak about that once disease is imminent, we do all sorts of things. But instead you should be having a proactive approach. You do all the things well before so that you don't have the disease or you can curb the entry of the disease inside your farm. So use of PP or your food barrier in sample collection. This is another important thing what you should be really concerned about. You can sample bats. At that time in Gorakhpur, we were told to collect bat samples because bats you cannot hold the bats, you cannot put a mist string or a mist net and just trap the bats because you need special paraphernalia to catch a bat. You cannot climb up the tree to catch a bat. But of course, you have other facilities too. But at that time, it was not available. So we are forced to collect some guanos or the bat drops. So the bat drop is yeah. Hello. Yeah. So the bat droppings, normally the bats are active during the dusk, the twilight hours. So during that time, you have to come beneath and collect fresh droppings. Or if the droppings are there for a long period of time, probably either it's going to get dried in the sun, or if there's a rain there, it gets diluted. So there are many problems in collecting these samples. So you can be there out in the twilight hours for collection of samples, provided you are burning a PP and you have a good trained attendant with you. Just take him along, just collect the fresh granules, put it in a molecular preservative, tissue sample preservative, or put it in a gel pack and send it to the laboratories where which can do the test. And a personal hygiene.
Nandakumar sir, 1 second, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, audio sometimes it is not clear, sir.
Is it?
Some echo like.
Okay. Now. Hello. Is it okay now?
Okay, sir. Now okay.
Okay. So I'm sorry for that because audio always I have a problem with audio because I don't have a good mic systems. Anyway, you need a personal hygiene, you have a barrier in your nursing and your awareness of things. What you should be doing. You should be doing more instead of just not doing something. And that too, handling a zoonotic event is not that silly as you handle an animal. And this is the Nipah outbreak which happened in Cochin. For Calicut. I'm just telling you about Cochin too because we had a problem in Cochin too. That is after this one. So Cochin also we had a Nipah outbreak. So this was the epicenter. This particular well was supposed to be the epicenter, and this well contained some microbats, the small bats, which are not supposed to be the reservoirs of Nipah. But again, we tried our luck on collecting some bats because there were a few bats inside. We just put a net over this and we collected. We got hold of one of the bats. Because this is the SRDDL team, the scientists from Bengaluru, they came and government officials like investment commissioner. He was supposed to go to Paris that next day, but he was just moved out to Kerala and he was told to attend to this just because it's an event and it's the first time occurrence in Kerala. So investment commissioners, Dr. Suresh Mannuthy, he was there. They convened meetings, and the second outbreak in Cochin, what we did was we just had the NIU people coming in, and they had a huge set of they have a huge pool and a big paraphernalia to catch hold of to capture bats. So bat capture is not that easy because you have to be very careful because you have to have long pools, and this whole structure they took it by road in big vehicles and they collected the bats, and finally the samples were collected and the bats were released. So the monitoring the success, we had a success story of Nipah containment in Kenya. Just because we had a good One Health approach, we had a lot of departments working in. We had animal husbandry department, we had health services, we had the revenue and the district administration. with the support of the government. We did a wonderful job, and we asked the WHO, this regional unit and the Southeastern Asian regional office, to come and just inspect us and just give some remarks of what we've done. So they came, and these were the 3 points what they took and what they discussed and they put in their report. One is the coordination structure and the mechanisms that were in place. Because suddenly Nipah outbreak came and we were not prepared for that. Because we were prepared for many things like, even for a flood or a disaster like this thing, we were prepared. But in a case like Nipah, and primarily what happened was in this particular Nipah in Calicut, what happened was there was an initial case from bats, and that person got admitted in the hospital. And this hospital was not knowing it was Nipah. And suddenly one wild guess from one of the doctors there ended up in a thought like Nipah. And he tested and found it positive. But by the time he was there for the hospital for 3 or 4 days, during the period which was not diagnosed, this man had transmitted the infection to a few people who was nurturing him, who was carrying him, and those nursing staff too. And one of the nursing staff, very unfortunate that one of our sisters, lady, she parted, and those things also happened. But that was again a hospital born or what you call as a point source epidemic. So it just went like that without our knowing, just because we didn't have an idea of whether it was Nipah or something else. Because initially when encephalitis and other signs come, they suspect something like rabies or even some listeria infection or some viral encephalitis or some bacterial meningitis. But this was something else. And this was again, this was studied. The performance of surveillance and interventions, including your non-technical support, means what all things you have done, outside your technical activities, like what all the district administration has been supporting you or not, what all things have been, and what all decisions you have taken, and what all things we have taken to contain the disease. And we could very well because started in the month of May last, and we could very well contain the disease by July 21st. July 21st, Nipah was free. Kerala was declared Nipah free. So that means that within the 2 months we could very well contain the disease. Of course, we had a few casualties too, but because our efforts, our relentless efforts, we paid. So that was his. And of course, the assessment of reduction of transmission. Of course, we could reduce once it was diagnosed and it's got affected. We could leash the particular pathogen without causing further spread. And this is that just giving you one example of this is a novel laureate testimony, because I think you should be knowing these 2 people. One is Peter Doherty, who is a Nobel laureate and veterinarian, Nobel laureate. And the person down, Rolf Singonagel, is another, is a human, is a medic, again a Nobel laureate who shared the prize with Peter Doherty. So you see, this is a sort of One Health approach, because these things happened much before, before we were, that was during 2007. It's 13 years past, but still we don't have this type of an attitude. Like, Dr. Kaplan was asking something about the work they have been doing, for finally when they were going for the assessment of the Nobel Prize. They're asking, he said they had some doubts about, what the work was being done and other things. And this particular man, this MD, this medic, without any hesitation, he told me, just consult with my co-worker who's a DVM, because I'm not the person to be opining on that. So that is a sort of One Health that we should be really thinking about. Because all the time, we just work in different compartments. We don't have any, though we always tell One Health is important, we always, try to open people like, animal husbandry people, environmentalists, biologists, doctors, and all together. We always sit together, when it's a webinar or some seminar, we just sit together and take, tomorrow onwards we're going to start, from day one we'll be starting a project and all this. Yesterday I heard Dr. Sunil sir telling about the same thing. One Health approach is not something which should be done when the disease is imminent. Now, once the disease is there, you have to be prepared. Your emergency preparedness comes out through a series of discussions which has to happen much before the event happens. So that is not at all happening. Very sorry to say that if my medic people, my counterparts are there, I think they will be having a point to tell on this. So again, this is just, I wanted to just show you this one. And again, I'm almost concluding my presentation. And there are certain thoughts, bats. See, bats were there much before they were born, like centuries old existence of bats were there. But why there's an emergence of disease now? Probably your stressors, your climate change, your ecological alterations, your habitat loss, many things, of course. But you are not sure why this has happened now. And these viruses in bats, are they real symbionts or parasites or commensals? Nobody has ever, a lot of work research has been done on bats, but nobody has ever finally told us what the real role of these parasites are there in the bats. And these viruses, of course, there are plant viruses too. We're talking about animal viruses. So if there are plant viruses, definitely, is there any problem with plants when these bats dispose the seeds or start the pollination? They're just feeding on trees and these their products. Is there a problem with the virus affecting plants? And why are they asymptomatic reservoirs? I think many scientific works have been done. I think probably a heightened immune response to antigens, or probably the evasion capability of the this particular species of animals to resist infection. All these probably can be a good thing. And again, the bats are being called as the culprits. And I just want to remind of typhoid baby. She was just being put under bars just because she carried the pathogenic organism of typhoid all along, without any of her intentions or without her will. She has been carried all along and finally put under bars. So again, the same fate is with bats too. With that note, I think I'll conclude my presentation. I'll open this for if there's anything to be added or to be asked to me or to the chair, probably people can just participate. Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Nandakumar.
Yes, sir.
It was a really wonderful presentation. You gave a total picture about the Nipah. And I had several doubts in my mind when I am hearing to that. But your last slide making me keeping mum, because it is still we have no light into what is Nipah and all. So whether we got any case positive with the bat samples that you collected from Calicut?
Sir, I'll tell you one thing. I'm telling you. See, this particular organism, this pathogen, cannot be diagnosed or cannot be tested in any of the laboratories in Kerala. That is one thing, because you need to have a high containment facility like what we have in Bhutan or NIV or Manipal Institute of Viral Research. So I think those two institutes like Manipal Institute of Viral Research and this NIV Pune, those two group of scientists came there, and I think I should be telling this also in this particular forum, because I saw these two groups just fighting against for samples. They want to get hold of the samples and try to publish first what is what and who is you. But to my knowledge, so far no information has come to us. Probably we were also a part of it. I think my department director would be able to tell more about it. But to my knowledge, no samples were tested positive. But there are reports from NIV telling that the phylogeny of those viruses which is found in Calicut was very similar to those Bangladesh strain. I'm not sure from what test they have done. Probably a PCR testing would have done, and probably they might have gone for some phylogenic analysis too. But those results were not communicated to any of us. Even university people, doctors were there from the asking professors, and a team of your people were also there. But because
is it because it is an official secret?
No, sir. No, it's not at all. Not at all. Because even if it's an official secret, I don't mind it revealing to such an august audience where all people are sitting. And this is a case which has happened 2 years before. So it's not at all a secret now, but it's been published also. But the thing is that, to my knowledge, there is no PCR diagnosis on any of the samples what they've collected. I think some ELISA, the IgM ELISAs they've done, and they've shown a positivity in the result. That's what I'm not sure about it. I think probably Natasha can tell you more about it. We have not tested, sir, because we don't have the facility, because we have to have a BSL-3 or a BSL-4 facility.
Okay.
Yes.
Once these bats are here, taking it is all, we are always at risk, isn't it?
Yes.
At any time it can come out.
Yeah.
So regarding the fallen fruit, if we can wash it with the soap,
Yes.
why can't we consume it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you one thing, sir. See, because the people sitting like, those people sitting in this particular webinar are all educated people because you know that as a foreign fruit, you should not be touching with your bare hand. So that is a bare fact. People, who knows the subject or knows there is some critical, thing to be considered. People always touch very carefully with that. They won't touch with their bare hands. But if you're propagating this message that you can wash it and clean it, probably those people will be handling this particular thing with their bare hands, and probably they can have a fecal-oral contamination of this particular fruit. That is what I mean. Definitely, your washing, as Martin sir was telling you, exactly, your washing will definitely get rid of this. That's no issue on that. But only thing, if you propagate this message to the public, probably people will take it in the other way. No, you don't have a problem. Just wash it and use it. That is what we use now. In COVID also, people think that COVID is not going to just affect you. You just keep your mask, even if you keep your mask below your nose also, your mouth is covered, you don't have a problem. So that sort of taking things lightly, that's a Malayali tendency. So it's better not to tell them now, to use fruits which are fallen and wash it and use.
Okay, there is a question from, I think it is Rashi U. Sir, is there any other amplifying host apart from pig?
No, as per the literature, because Nipah is a virus which has not been studied so far. Even with CDC also, they have been trying doing too much of work on Atlanta CDC also been doing work on Nipah. But so far, no literature has ever suggested that other species are really good hosts for Nipah virus. Because probably you can, if you do a surveillance on even cattle and sheep also, your small ruminants and your ruminants, probably you can get a seropositivity, but that doesn't mean an infection. But amplification is only that attribute which can be, given to this one, pigs, and not any other species.
Okay, now the session is all questions from delegates. One more question, Dr. K. Ashok.
Yeah.
In some places like UP, bats are dying in large numbers these days. Whether climate change has affected the bats and the stress related is producing the novel infections.
Yeah. I will answer to that. See, the thing is that it is not that bats are aggregating in large numbers, because bats have got certain roosting sites. All these roosts, when one roost gets destroyed, they have to search for another roost. So and each and every colony is not roost dependent. If you don't have a roost, you can just, the whole colony of bats goes to the other roost, and the other roost of bats will definitely accommodate this particular roost. They are very social because they just aggregate this type of animals. They just can accommodate any group of animals. That is what UP and all of what the problem is. Too much of felling of trees normally gives a chance of losing the roost. Normally, all these numbers aggregate in the other part of it. And stress. The question of stress is definitely there, because normally the birthing happens from July to August. That is the normal period of birthing, like June to August. So normally that period is a stressful period. Even the Palode outbreak also, I think it happened during almost that time. And stressor is there already. Plus, if you have an inclement weather or people just burning, because in that Calicut outbreak, Cochin outbreak, what I remember is there have been a big roost in one of the near that seminary. There was one church there. There was a big roost, and suddenly this roost was cut down just because of the problem with bats. Because bats became a problem because all these droppings were falling down. And every day the sweeper had to clean all this, so that roost was cut down. And very near to that, this particular outbreak or this particular case happened, this index case happened. So I'm not really exactly correlating this particular cutting of the tree and the index case, but definitely there can be a relation. That is what I'm trying to aim at.
Okay, I think no more questions. Anybody else?
I think, sir, if you can just write down what all questions are there in the chat, because I'm not able to read out exactly. But Ishad can help me, means definitely I can give you some answers. Yeah.
Yes, I will help.
There is one more question in the chat, sir.
Yeah, please.
Why many of the zoonotic disease outbreaks start in Kerala?
Probably that's a very good question and very intriguing, because probably I think those people who are sitting there are all people from this state. Why this is happening in Kerala, we don't know. Because 2001 it happened in West Bengal. Again, it happened in Kerala only. Because I was telling, Odisha is just nearby. It didn't happen in Odisha. Because that you don't have an answer for that. Probably, you have to do some Vastu or something to find out why it is happening in Kerala. It's the lighter side of it, please. Because, there is no exactly scientific evidence to prove that, Kerala is not that bad. It's a very good congenial climate for all, all people to live, all animals to live, and even pathogens too. Probably that may be the reason. Yeah.
There is one more question. This is not related to Nipah, but it is actually related to COVID-19.
Yeah.
So maybe, what strategies are being adopted in Kerala for disease surveillance and control? As even though the first case of COVID-19 was from Kerala, yet total number of cases in Kerala has been much less compared to the other states.
Yeah. I tell about the disease surveillance because since I'm working in an institute where we are planning the strategies for the department for regarding COVID surveillance in animals. I tell you what we have thought of. We have given some advisories to the field veterinarians also. Probably universities university might have given your advice. Probably in the same line. Of course, we discuss with you professors only, and we finally end up with some points. I'll tell you a few points because in this particular case, we had a problem of infection or COVID in brown stew in some wild cats, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a real problem in animals. Now I think it's too premature to go for a surveillance because you have ample problem with humans, so you don't have a testing facility. Of course, if you are really concerned about and if you have a sure shot suspicion about a COVID case in an animal, definitely we have facilities. Probably we will be sending the samples to key centers identified as of now. IVRI is another. Then one is NRC Equines Hisar, Haryana, and the other is Visa Bhopal. And in fact, 2 weeks back we had one case. There was a dog in the premises of a primary health center, and that primary health center had to be closed just because there was a COVID positive patient there. All the doctors and the HIs, the health inspectors, the entire staff were quarantined and they were put under quarantine for 14 days. The hospital was closed. Unfortunately, there was a dog there which these people were feeding. And this dog was there, it was starving literally. And after 3-4 days, this dog died. And people got scared that whether what should be done. Immediately, our department people went there. We just got hold of the carcass. We sent it to a laboratory at Thiruvananthapuram, or even disease diagnostic laboratory. We did a postmortem with all those precautions. And when the postmortem was done, to our surprise, there were some respiratory signs which really pointed out some sort of a respiratory infection. So we cannot just leave it like that because it's being a scientific people, be scientific people that are doing an autopsy. If you really have a suspicion, the doctors there told us, definitely we have a suspicion. Why don't we rule out? So immediately we contact Nishat. Dr. Ashwin is the person who is doing it in Nishat. So we contacted Dr. Ashwin and he told definitely send the samples, we'll test it. That samples. That samples.
से बात कर रहे हैं उन्होंने आपके कॉल को होल्ड पर रखा है कृपया लाइन पर बने रहिए The person you are speaking with has put your call on hold.
Hello.
Yes sir. No.
I'm ending. This particular sample, the result came now. It's tested. It's negative. So that result has been communicated. So as far as this particular context, I don't think we need to go for a surveillance. And if conditions aggravate, and if you have similar symptoms in animals, and too many what demands are there from the field, we definitely look into it for a surveillance. But as of now, we have shared our PCR mission to the human testing center, and we don't have a PCR mission right now, even for doing our routine animal testing. So that is sort of affairs what is happening in Thiruvananthapuram.
So there is one more question, sir. I think we'll end this with that. What is the significant future of bats that makes them a potent agent for all emerging diseases?
Yeah, one thing I'll tell you, I'm just always batting for bats, because bats should be spared, because you just cannot do anything with bats. You cannot, people have thought of depopulating bats, because which is a foolish idea. You cannot do anything on that. Now we're living with COVID. We once thought, COVID is going to wipe out the whole population. But it's not that. Why now we are living with COVID, with masks, and your social distancing. Like that, bats will be there, but how not to disturb them, how not to distress them, that would be the priority what we should be giving. Please don't disturb them, please don't give them some stress wherein they are going to disseminate or dissipate all these organisms to the outside area. Otherwise, they'll let pathogens be there, let they harbor the pathogens, that be safe, they won't release it, that will be stored as a reservoir. Pathogens will survive there without causing any problem to us, provided